up. And I remember being in my bedroom as a teenager, like smoking weed and like watching that and being like, oh yeah, this is so cool.
This is so meta.
Hey there, it's Thomas from Sleepless Studios here. Thanks for listening to Sleepless, a podcast about the creative process. As you can see, we've officially opened the new Podcast Pro space here at Sleepless Studios. Robin and I originally started shooting season 2 while we were still building the space. But as you can see now, it's looking great. When we recorded this episode, the decor and design of the set was still evolving and the video equipment wasn't quite there yet. But the interviews were so good, we wanted to share them with you. So as you watch the next couple of episodes, you'll see some incredible interviews and you'll be able to watch the studio evolve into what you see here. Thank you so much for watching and please enjoy this episode.
So I am Grrlcrrsh. I am a DJ and event producer in Toronto. My main event that I run is Queued Up, which is a queer collective which does a number of things, mostly open decks, but we also do events, we do workshops, basically just trying to uplift queer DJs and underrepresented voices in the dance music scene, and create community around that.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really amazing what you guys are doing over there with Queued Up. Yeah, how did it all get started?
So Queued Up kind of started... The reason I decided to start it was I learned to DJ during the pandemic.
Okay.
And so during that time, I was kind of just learning by myself. I didn't really know a ton of other DJs. And I figured there was probably a bunch of people like me that were learning the skill during the pandemic and looking for community and other people to work with. And so I thought of creating this kind of open decks place.
Yeah.
Also because at the time there were not very many CDJ studios in the city. You guys are doing that now, which is great. But at the time, the only place where you could like play on CDJs was Baseline, rest in peace.
Yes.
And it was like Baseline is great, but definitely for like the girlies and like some of the queers, it didn't always feel like a super comfy space to go into.
I get that.
You know? So we kind of wanted to create a space for ourselves where we could meet other like-minded creatives. And for me, like the idea of like collaborating with other artists and DJs and, you know, you get a chance to like observe firsthand what other people are doing. And it's just such a constant source of inspiration and it like pushes you to like get better and challenge yourself. And like, you know, everyone approaches things so differently. So we just wanted to create a space to make this kind of stuff happen. And so Queued Up kind of came up as an idea. I actually got the idea when I was visiting New York.
Okay.
And they had a collective called She They DJ there. And I went to another...
It's a great name.
Yeah. That one is more like a weekly happy hour party. So it's every week. I think they have like 3 or 4 DJs and they just play an hour set. And I went to like another open decks too at Transpescos. And I was like, when I went to all these events, I was like, wow, this is so cool. I wish we had stuff like this in Toronto. Like we barely have anything. All we had at the time was like Baseline. And like everyone that I kind of vocalized this to was like, well, you should make one. Yeah. And at the time I was like, oh my God, I don't think I can do that. That sounds like a lot. And then I came back home and I was like just percolating and I was like, you know what, maybe I can do it. So I reached out to a couple of my friends, Melody Retrograde and Zellers, who are also doing really awesome things in the city and outside of the city.
Right.
And we decided to make this open decks happen and it just kind of snowballed from there. And now it's season 3 of Queued Up.
Amazing.
We've been through a couple different iterations and it's still kind of evolving, but yeah.
Well, this is it. I'm sure like it'll be ever evolving, you know, like you just learn and then you take on new bits. And then one question, what have been some of your favorite moments over the course of Queued Up?
Some of my favorite moments?
Yeah.
I mean, there's been so many, like, We got our first grant last
Oh,
year,
amazing.
so we
How
had
did you
a
find that process?
it was really cool. It was just a project grant. And so we had
Okay.
this idea to make this photo clinic event. So, there's like headshot clinics for like LinkedIn and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we wanted like an artist version of it where you could like get a little bit more creative and like, like find a cool space so you could like, you know, instead of having it be like just a sterile headshot, you could like do some cool poses, wear some cool outfits, get some
Right.
cool props, and
Comfortable, doing some
yeah,
funky things.
exactly. So a place where you can like express yourself and who you are as an artist.
Right.
And that was something that we obviously like. It would have just been way too expensive to just do it on our own, and we're very much like we collect donations at the open decks, and all of the donations that we collect at the open decks, and sometimes when we do events that are ticketed, all of that stuff just goes back into like funding our programming
Right.
and making other events happen. So we applied to the project grant, and it was amazing to like get to be granted that, and meeting with a bunch of other queer initiatives in Ontario. It was the Rainbow Grant by the
Oh,
Community
amazing.
One Foundation. Shout out to them. So that was really awesome. They showed up to our event and everything. That was definitely a highlight. And also just seeing so many people that have like come through to our open decks, and from the connections that they've built at QDUP, they have started their own
Yes.
collectives and projects and
Yeah.
everything, and just like seeing all that happen and turn into their own things. And now they're like, thriving artists, like amazing DJs, amazing event coordinators, like
Right.
doing these things.
Doing
Like,
their own thing.
I
it's
mean, that's what we get a huge kick out
Yeah.
of as well. Seeing people walk through the door and then suddenly go on to just do amazing things, or even, they already are amazing in themselves, and just being like, wow, this person's graced the studios. It's
Right?
yeah.
It's really special. Like, they're doing their own thing, and like I can't ever like be like, oh yeah, but it's like knowing that we were like played a small role in like making that happen, facilitating some of these connections. That's really special. And so many people have just like, let us know how much that having a space like Queued Up really means to them. And so many people, especially after the pandemic, were really searching for that community and like meeting other people. And I think Queued Up and a lot of different collectives kind of popped up all around the same time, like
Right.
early
After the pandemic.
2022
Yeah.
or 2023.
Oh, so-
Timeline is kind of
Yeah, I think it was like
Misty.
20 through 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think so much of it, like we've talked about this before, but a lot of it was like before the pandemic, it's kind of like it is now. You'll go, 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 go all the time, and you almost don't have time to make space for that. And then when the pandemic hit, I always think of it as the silver lining that suddenly you were like, oh, I've got all this free time. Like, what am I going to do for myself to keep?
Totally.
And then people got in touch with their creative outlets, and, a lot of great things spawned out of it in the end
Yeah.
for all the negatives.
Yeah. And I think people are just so hungry coming out of the pandemic
very
for
true.
like community, for
That's very
events, for
true.
things to do. And, I feel like the last like 2 years has been like a super exciting time to be part of just the scene in
Yeah.
Toronto. Just like so much has popped up and filled in some of the gaps of things that didn't come back afterwards. So
Right. Well,
yeah.
One thing that I have noticed, though, that I think some Torontonians,
You're
they like, I've heard people say, oh, well, like, I wish, I was in Europe, Berlin's so cool or whatever. And and they asked like, oh, you two are from Europe, I'm sure you're used to all these. And I'm like, well, actually, I think the thing about like, I mean, growing up in Ireland and stuff, I think we really owned our own like partying culture and said like, this is like how we party. And I think Toronto needs to realize like what great stuff is starting to come out of the city and like
Totally.
own that and not be like,
yeah.
No, totally.
yeah,
Yeah, because definitely I feel like looking at the Irish scene, that they're pretty good at like supporting local DJs. I feel like sometimes there can be a big culture here. If there's no like international headliner, like I won't go. But really, it's really all about supporting local and helping the scene to grow,
Totally. Totally.
internally. Like, that's what promotes like a good scene.
Totally.
yeah.
But
And
you know what? I also went to visit Europe, not last fall, but the fall before that. I went to
Yeah.
like a few big music cities. Like I went to Berlin and Amsterdam and Lisbon, and like they have like really cool art scene there. But like I definitely think that there was like a lack of just like open decks, and
That's what
just
it's
because there's
called.
so many like so much saturation in those
That's
markets,
very
it can
true.
be really tough to like break into that.
Yeah.
And I think, the kind of things that like Queued Up is doing and like the techno community is doing here with like, taking new artists like under their arms and like giving them access to like these opportunities and like lifting them up. Like I think that is pretty cool. And I don't think, as much as people from Toronto don't like, act, how we're not Berlin. However, we are doing our really cool
Yeah,
things
yeah,
out here that
exactly.
people aren't doing in other places. And I
Yeah,
think we
yeah.
should own that and
No,
like
yeah.
feel
100%.
proud of that,
100%.
Yeah.
Like Toronto should feel proud, and I personally can't wait to see, the next, few years what's going to happen. Like I really do think that, like I said it to Tom, like when I first started kind of regularly, I'm like, there's a real like tipping point. I feel that there's going to be like. Just look at all the stuff that's popped up, what you're starting. Like, there's so much like green shoots starting that it's
Yeah.
going to be very interesting to see what happens in the next few years.
Yeah, and it's nice to be around, like in the middle of it, like seeing it all, like happen around you is like really nice instead of being like around the more established scenes, like in Europe and stuff like that. Like you were saying, it can feel a bit more like uh, saturated or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas here, like you're right in the thick of it, and you can see it growing, which is
And
Yeah.
the
nice.
sound, right?
Yeah,
there
yeah.
there is going to be a few definitive Toronto sounds.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Like it or not, I think like that hard techno is really starting to become a bit of a Toronto
Yeah.
sound, like that real like, and like that I feel like you don't get that like there's a specific, I don't know how to place it, but I hear it more in Toronto than maybe it's just our circles or something.
Yeah. Or it could be a West. You're more used to hearing other sort of certain styles
Yeah,
out in
than
the
the
West
West
Coast.
Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the West Coast is more like bassy, like that bass music,
Yeah.
which I think also
They
is
do
out.
some
Yeah.
great bass music out of there. Though.
Yeah, they do. And it's really something that's become like a slow burn for me because we talk about the highs and lows of music, like the high of a music becomes quite commercialized and samey. And I feel like when we were growing up, Tom and I, like dubstep was like really big. And then it got to a point where like even Grrlcrrsh stopped playing dubstep, so bass has that kind of like a bit of dubsteppy in it but now I've really come full circle on it. It's kind of owned its thing.
Yeah. So with
So
or do you have a
yeah, I
question?
have something there.
Yeah.
The before off air you were saying who actually coached how you learned to DJ. Originally somebody coached you.
Yes. So right January 2020, right before the pandemic hit, there's this DJ in the city whose events I really loved going to called DJ Me Time. She used to run like the everybody parties and now is involved with Bass Switch and doing a bunch of really cool projects. And the reason it came up is because Degrassi
Yeah,
came
we
up
had Stephen Stone, one of the producers of Degrassi. But yeah,
on the podcast.
the ever circle of the Degrassi
Yeah.
thing
This
follows.
is, yeah.
Yeah. But so she was the one who ran the first workshop that I did. It was like a 4-week workshop, and right when we got to our last week, right before that, when we finished up, the week after was when everything kind of shut down.
Wow.
So it was like an amazing timing of everything that happened. At least we got to finish the program and everything, but then everything that we were like, everything shut down. So it was just like, oh, well, now I guess I can just like DJ in my room.
Right.
Well, at least you had the skills to start.
Exactly. And I recently ran a DJ workshop at TMU. There's a campus radio station, Met Radio. And so I have been running DJ workshops out of there. And she was one of our guest facilitators.
Oh,
So it was a really
that's
nice
cool.
full circle moment to
Yeah.
bring her back and like be able to like work together and, share with the person that like taught me, be able to share with new
Yeah,
people.
and fair play to you really for keeping like a thing that you're passionate about and clearly love and bringing that as part of your like career as well, because
Yeah.
it's not an easy thing to do. To be able to keep on that kind of North Star and kind of build yourself over it. Cause
Yeah, would you be doing this full time now, or is this a passion project, or?
Um, I definitely have a lot of side hustles. I have like a
Right.
part-time day job
Yeah.
situation, and then this teaching job came up. It's just a contract, so it's just for the next couple months. But it just like came up at a good time, and I wasn't really expecting to have ways to like be able to like monetize this in the number of ways that have come up,
Sure.
and so I feel really blessed and really fortunate to be able to take advantage of these kinds of opportunities. But being an artist, being a gig worker, it always feels a little precarious. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, like it's great right now. Whether I'm gonna be able to keep this up full time forever, I'm not sure. Even if I'm not even sure I would call myself full time yet.
Right.
But it's for now, it's great.
Yeah. And how are you finding that, like juggling your creative passions with your like 9 to 5 jobs or whatever, still squeezing in time for the creative expressions here and there, or how are
It's
you
definitely
finding it?
been a struggle
Yeah.
over the past little bit because I was off work for a while when like
Okay.
I kind of started queued up, and then I had been at this career job for like 6 going on 7 years, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take a little risk and just I felt like I was kind of at my limit of like professional growth in that job, and I was like, okay, I feel like if I'm gonna proceed with this career path, like I would probably have to like move out of the city and stuff.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really the direction I wanted to go with. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a step back, do this DJ thing for like a year, see how that goes. And it went really well.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, you've been playing a lot, and I know certainly you did our very kindly DJed an hour of our open house, and we were totally impressed with like your selection, your DJ skills, and like even now you're out there and you're really did like we were only talking to somebody there like, who are you podcasting? We're like, Grrlcrrsh, and I was like, I know that name. Like you're getting into the consciousness of people being like, I know that name.
Yeah.
So you're doing what you need to do, and you're doing a great job of it. So
Everyone's on that grind. It's definitely a grind though,
It
it
is.
is.
Yeah,
What have
for
been some like gig highlights for you? Any special moments?
Playing the big stage on Saturday night at Pride this year was pretty cool, or last year
Oh,
was really
wow.
cool. That was definitely a moment with all the controversy that has been around Pride in general. But still being up there was definitely like a dream come true.
Yeah.
I got to play at this past New Year's, and like right at midnight. So
Oh,
that was
that's fun.
a really
What
fun
was
moment.
what was your song? What was your midnight song?
It was at Something for the Lovers, which is a very like queer party, and it was like this remix of Rush that had a countdown in the
Nice.
song of like
That's so
this
good.
person like counting you through doing a popper. And so like I was trying to like line up the like one moment
Nice.
like right with the midnight, and we like missed it by a few seconds, but it worked. It was like a great moment.
That's good.
That's very cool. Did you practice that before, or you just winged that?
I had this song, like I knew that was gonna be my last song, and I was like, okay, like if I play it, it's like exactly 4 minutes. So I was like checking my phone, like at this time I want to like press play on the
Okay.
song. So like it worked pretty well.
And how do you, now that you're doing, I suppose, DJing more often, do you find that you still practice, or your practice is very much like, out in the field or doing it kind of live?
It's definitely all over the place. Now that I have more regular job stuff, I don't quite have as much time to like prep and practice as much as I used to.
Right.
But usually, especially before a bigger gig, I try to at least get in like 1 or 2 practices. Like I can go out and sometimes just like play a set straight, and I have done it a bunch of times, but I definitely find like, personally, like my perfectionist not like thing of like, I find that if I have at least one practice, it definitely sounds a lot better than like if I have no practice.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I also like to, play different sets, different
Genres.
different vibes, events call for different kinds of things. So
Yeah. Well, would you do much like setlist prep, or do you kind of have you go in with a bunch of tracks and just wing it, or what's your sort of style?
So my kind of process is for every event, I'll make a different playlist, but
Okay.
I'll throw like, 100 to 200 tracks into that playlist
Okay.
of stuff that I think fits the vibe.
Yeah.
And then sometimes if I have the time, I'll like maybe like prep like the first few songs that I'm gonna start with. But then sometimes you get there and like the vibe of the person that was playing before is completely different. So you can't really stick too much to like what you might have tried to script. You kind of have to stay flexible. So my usual process is like, actually like lately it's been like I'll make like 3 different playlists for every like set that I'm playing, because I have like a bunch of different genres. So like, for example, I have an event coming up with Salem Burns, who I am their resident. We do like queer kind of kinky parties and stuff. But for that one, like I have like the early night where I was thinking of playing some more like deep housey stuff, and then later in the night where I want to play like some more groovy, like maybe bassier stuff. And so I have like my master playlist of like everything in there, and then I have like like little sub playlists of like the more chiller stuff, the more like bigger, like bassier, faster stuff, and you know, try to like bounce between those.
I would actually love to see a comparison of different DJs' USBs. Have you organized that?
Well, I was just about to ask you, how many tracks do you think total are in your like collection? How many tracks do you think you would have in record box?
I have to do such a major track cleanup, but last I checked, I think I was definitely over like 3,000.
That was pretty good.
That's
good.
That's
good amount of tracks. Yeah. And are you a person that would have them like all well organized? Like, oh, if I need a certain track to fill a certain type of vibe, I'll go here and grab it from there. Or is it just like, I remember that one? Yeah.
I wish I really tried to start off as organized as I did.
Yeah.
And then I had this whole process of like my unsorted tracks, everything new that was in my library. I had like a playlist where I would put all that and then add my tags and like throw it into my genre playlist. And then one day I accidentally deleted that playlist. And since then it's just been chaos. So I completely fell off. But nowadays I usually just like, I'll have like event playlists. So I know I'm like, okay, like this event was kind of that vibe. Maybe I'll have some cool tracks in there that I can pull from. And then this one was kind of that kind of vibe. So
I'm terrible at track names. I never know a track name. So I'm literally, when I'm DJing, I have to go and like hot cue things. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good song. I'll go. Like I, for the life of me, couldn't remember a track name. It's crazy.
That's why it helps when I have at least one practice, because then I'm like, oh, this track was kind of that, and it helps me remember, because I just have so much. Like, how can you possibly
remember all that? I'm sure there's DJs out there that have the
vinyl DJs.
Vinyl DJs,
yes.
and then
that's another level.
Have you seen that YouTube thing? It's like a German telecoms thing, and they do this blind test with DJs, and they play like 5 seconds of a track, and it's like they might have 2000s techno, and they blind test DJs and they have to get the name. Their recollection is incredibly good.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's Telecom DE, I think.
So much skill there, you know.
I think.
Have DJs lost that?
This is what I was going to get to, right? Is that, you know, I think people underestimate like what a good DJ is. And I think because there's so many people who are, I don't know how to put it, like clouting maybe, like DJing for the clout, or I don't know how to really phrase this, but they can like, or maybe because the market's saturated, it's people aren't like valuing what like a DJ is about, their craft is about.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough one.
It's definitely like times have changed. It's probably with improvements in technology and it's like everything, isn't it?
Absolutely. I definitely have had some encounters where it was actually super funny. I was at an event recently, and my friends and I were outside talking about some struggle that we had with an event recently, where like the gear wasn't working the way that we thought it was going to work, and it made it hard to do something. And like someone overheard our conversation and came over to talk to us, and it was like this person, they had been DJing for like longer than any of us had been alive, and like started on vinyl and was like, "What do you mean the visuals? You just gotta learn to just listen to the music and not be able to do it." And you're like, I'm like, yes, you're right. You do gotta learn that. And you know, that's kind of why we like, you know, with Queued Up, usually we use we try to use a variety of different kinds of controllers, but my CDJs are CDJ 900s. So that is like pretty much as limited display as you can get on a CDJ. Like it's just like the one color, just like bars.
Yeah, that's actually how the ones I used. Was it 600s, I think?
Was it 6 or the 1000s?
I don't think it was even 1000s we had. I
Yeah.
think when we started it was the 6, and it was just like a bar like this big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's so fun to play on those, actually.
Well, we were discussing because Tom put up a post being like, do we want to get vintage?
Well, yeah, I was at this like
I remember seeing that.
exhibition. Yeah, so yeah, so I was at this exhibition and they had this like collection of old like CDJs, and yeah, threw up that you got loads. People were like, yeah,
Yeah.
get some of those. I'd love to try those.
Maybe that could be a workshop idea.
we could.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's mad to think how much like the like DJ technology has like changed over the
Absolutely.
years. Like, where's it going?
And you know what? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like the technology is cool. And, you know, there are definitely ways that they can aid the DJ process.
Yeah.
However, I feel like, and this is something that we try to like encourage with Queued Up, is like try not to rely on those, because, you know, someday you might show up to a gig and they have like a janky ass half broken mixer and you're playing on like one time I played a gig on CJ 350s. None of them had link, and it
Yeah.
was just like those tiny little screens and
Yeah.
everything. And like
Yeah.
sometimes you're gonna show up and you're gonna have to play on that. And so you should be able to like get your skill to a point where like you can be able to play a set on that without having to rely on the extra bells and whistles
That's true.
in order to like play
That's
a
so
good
true.
set.
Yeah.
Because
You
I
know?
think people are so spoiled these days.
Yeah.
They just walk in. Like, I mean, maybe we're part of the problem. But yeah, no, it definitely is like learning to mix on the fly. Like, I think a lot of people like, oh, it doesn't have the hotkeys. I'm not playing on it. You're like, well, you could figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit.
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys do that in Queued Up. You like do like genre bingo or something?
We came up with a couple different types of games
Oh,
to
okay.
play. So there's like one game where it's kind of like we called it like flag tag, but it's kind of like you pick a different color, and depending on the color, you have a different instruction. Kind of like King's Cup in a way, where like each card has a different instruction, but like one of the instructions could be like, you know, mix your next track without headphones, or somebody else picks your next track to mix in, or like
Yeah.
play a song off somebody else's USB, or, you know, do like at least a 15 BPM jump in your next song or something like that.
That's
and like,
good.
you know, it's just like ways to kind of keep people on their toes, and like it's actually like it actually is pretty fun. And it's just, you know, I feel like that's kind of like real life training of like getting out of your own comfort zone and your own kind
Yeah.
of like DJ habits, and like kind of
Problem
encouraging
solving.
you to like, you know,
Yeah.
be creative, be flexible, be open to different kinds of being able to like throw the ball and try to catch it. Like,
Yeah. Joe, I wonder, I don't know, just thinking as you said that, what's this like kind of setup then when people are doing that like face-off thing that's big now? Like, how does that work? Have you seen those face-off?
Yeah,
have seen
face to
that.
face.
So what
Have you
is it
seen-
like? Is somebody just like throwing you a track and then you have to
No,
mix
no,
into
it's
that?
all that's all off the ear. That's really it's taking like, I don't know if you've seen any of these
I
sets.
have seen it.
Yeah, but it's like B2B, but like next level. So I'm still trying to figure out how it all works, but I think they're definitely able to listen to what's being played, like what's being played everywhere, and then probably just beat matching off that. I don't think there's any like
yeah, because they're not
Syncage.
linked or
yeah,
anything.
no,
It's
Yeah.
no.
just two different separate
so
setups.
it's just yeah, exactly.
But then
yeah.
how are they,
F
so
to F?
face-to-face, so then like
Yeah.
let's say channel 1 and 2, then channel 1 and 2 on the other mixer.
Yeah,
But then how, like, are they just take it low because they can play through the same speaker, they just need to line it up?
yeah. It was probably just
Wow.
going through some controller,
That's-
like switch, some engineer doing something, and then they like
Wow.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
no, that's real B2B skill.
So they're,
like
they're
that.
basically playing like it's 4 decks that might be playing at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and you're
exactly, exactly.
that sounds
And then you
very
got to just
fun.
suss it out by your ear
Wow,
and just
that's
like
pretty
go.
cool.
Yeah, it's
We
cool.
might have to do a queued up face-to-face
Yeah.
edition.
Yeah. Try. Yeah, I'd love to try. Yeah, I was contemplating it myself. Yeah, but yeah. So, we never asked. The venue for Queued Up is usually
We usually do the open decks at Houndstooth.
Houndstooth. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is it going to be that like for the foreseeable, Houndstooth?
For the most part, yes. But once in a while, we'll do like a field trip and do something in another venue. We've had a few talks with a few different venues that have like expressed some interest in like doing queued up. We did one at Geary Warehouse 209.
Yeah.
And we have some maybe talks of doing them at a couple other
Watch
places.
this space.
So,
All the
not gonna
socials
say anything
will
just
be
yet.
below. Keep an eye on
But we
social
love
stuff.
Houndstooth. They're just really great for supporting music in the city. So I don't know how much you guys know about Houndstooth, but downstairs they have rehearsal rooms for bands and stuff.
cool.
And then, they have like, it's always free to do events there. And like,
That's nice.
Yeah.
it's just like
They got the pool
accessible for
tables,
the
right?
community. They got the pool tables,
yeah.
they got some pinball.
Yeah.
It's a good vibe.
Yeah.
So it's,
I'll have to check it
yeah.
out next trip.
Yeah.
Will we squeeze it in? Maybe next trip.
Yeah,
I'll have-
definitely. Yeah. We will.
That's one thing actually Toronto is really great for. It's just got rightly or wrongly, it's got such a great like mix of bars and pubs and, wine bars. It's just got so many
Yeah.
different, it is, I think we discussed this before, lacking a mid-sized venue for like
Yes.
gigs.
yes.
But other than that, doing great.
Yeah. And we need places like Houndstooth that are just basically there to support the culture, And
Yeah.
more cross-pollination between DJs and musicians, I think, needs to happen.
So
That's
we were talking to there's a dubstep and I can't their community is but they're bringing in dubstep and live music.
Cool.
Which I think is really cool. I think Remy was mentioned that to us
Oh,
yesterday.
yeah. I can't remember their name. We'll think about it.
Yeah.
It's also like the thing we're talking to Red Bull about as well.
Yeah, Red Bull are doing like hopefully that's whatever.
Yeah.
Hopefully we won't get. He said he's bringing flyers, so it must be.
Yeah, it must be
public
announced.
knowledge
Yeah,
that, they're doing like a symphony with electronic music as well in Toronto.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen like some people do hybrid setups too with like both with like, synths and stuff, but also I've seen like a live drummer and a DJ.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah, that's
a
good.
live bassist or a
Monolink's very good at
guitarist
that.
and a DJ. There's Pat makes music that plays live guitar
Wow.
or no live bass
And then
while like playing like DJ tracks on top, and it was so cool at Kinetic for their New Year's show.
Nice.
Played a fucking killer set.
Wow.
That was awesome.
And that because I was talking to another guy, I think he goes by, I don't know, it's his Instagram handle, it's like Juan or Juan is like his thing, but he did a few sets here and production, but we were messaging on Instagram and he was like, a big issue for me is nobody wants to take the risk in their night to do live music. So that's an issue for a lot of people, which I kind of think I don't think anyone actually cares if it goes a bit wrong. They're still in awe of the fact that you tried, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I was an event producer, I wouldn't care.
What are some artists you like outside of electronic music?
Honestly, I try to listen to so much. I found that over the past year, I definitely hit a wall where like when I started to DJ to like then, I was just listening to electronic music because I'm just like constantly harvesting for tracks and like
Yeah.
prepping for gigs and like doing all that. And I was like, you know what, man? Like I feel like I've missed so much music because I've just been so on this electronic wave. And so I've been really into like psychedelic rock. There's a lot of really cool psychedelic rock coming out of Australia right now, like Glass Beams. I love King Gizzard. And I've been listening to like a lot of like 70s psychedelia and
Nice.
just like doing a retrospective of like music from the past, psychedelic music from the past like 30, 40 years and how that like interweaves into electronic music. And I want to like bring more of that like influence of like, like classic funk and everything into my sets and a lot of disco,
Yeah, like the Prodigy were originally a heavy metal band.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, they were
That would make
originally.
sense.
The Prodigy were
Yeah.
originally a heavy metal band.
Underworld too, their first couple albums was like 80s pop.
Yeah.
And then they shifted gears real hard into like trancey,
Yeah.
like electronic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I think I think that's like so much of music takes from other like pockets. Like I actually listen to like a lot of like music from Africa, and now I'm hearing a lot of the songs that I would have listened to like maybe 6 years ago, like come into like the Afro house rise, and it's just funny seeing like all that kind of just circles around. But you were talking about, I saw this the other day on Instagram, but that Dark Side of the Moon, if you play it at the exact same time as the Wizard of Oz, it links up perfectly.
Yeah. I think there
That's
was
creepy.
a video on YouTube at one
Yeah.
time that synced them both up. And I
Yeah.
remember being in my bedroom as a teenager, like smoking weed and like watching that and being like, oh yeah, this is so cool.
The simulation is real.
Yeah, no, like even that stuff, like I love those. That's a big thing I love about. Here's maybe a thing, like there's not many good, like I feel like albums today, I touched on this earlier, it's like a lot of, it's churned out, whereas like I feel like they used to really like make an album and there'd be little like hidden things in there, like if you played some backwards or if you like played these like songs together, it was a story. I feel like a lot of that is missing now in kind of modern music because you know people just don't want 3 songs off an album off Spotify.
Well, like, you know, I feel like Spotify and TikTok has really changed the way that we consume music and also the expectations that we have on artists. And people are just like constantly expecting people to create like content and new that like, you know, people don't like the album cycles are so much like quicker too these days. Like you don't have time to like sit and like create that kind of piece of
body of work,
of like, or body of work that like, you know, where you don't have the time to like go into it that way. And that's maybe why you see like a lot of bands that they have a great first album because they have all this time to create it. And then after that, they just fall off because they're just like, okay, the records company's like, okay, where's the next one? Let's go, you know?
That's so Rick Rubin actually touches on that. When he took on Johnny Cash for his last album, Johnny Cash was like, by the industry standards, done. They were like, you know, you're a one-trick pony. Nobody's listening to your music anymore. And when Rick Rubin says it, but that he sat down and was like, forget all that. Like, what do you want to play? Don't worry about what people want to listen to, what record labels want of you. And that's like a big issue. He says why people end up going to Rick Rubin because they're like, I'm like, because there's like a flaw in your own success. You get so successful, you expect you feel like everyone expects all these things off you. But ultimately, what it always was your expression of art coming out, and people vibed off that. So they tend to forget that as they grow because of all the other crap.
The pressure. Yeah, that's very true.
I think that's great advice for new DJs too. Like, you know, I feel like when you're caught up in a scene or like playing these events, like sometimes you can get so bogged down of like, oh, like, okay, like what do people want me to play? Or like, what should I play? Like, you know, should I have a niche? Should I just you know, be only techno or only bass or only this? And like, you know, or is it going to be hard to market myself if I'm like doing all these different things? But I think at the end of the day, like art that's always going to resonate more with people. It's like the art that you're excited about and you're having a good time. And if you're not having a good time doing the thing, other people aren't going to be having a good time watching you either, you know?
Yeah, your passion.
That's what Stephen Stone said, actually. The Degrassi producer, and he made his own album. He said, like, the biggest thing that you need to, you know, he touched on to even this broader topic of like collective consciousness and all this stuff, but like really what he was coming down to is like really the ability for you to like actually attach onto something creative and like let that funnel through you is you're going to be way more successful in the long run and stop worrying about like all the other noise. And it is a tough thing, right? Especially when you're learning to DJ, you're trying to build a brand, you're like, shit, like if I play, you know, pop music, does that make me uncool for the techno heads? You know, it's tough.
And that brings us to our final segment, the hot take wheel.
Wow.
So spin the wheel. We have a topic and we shall discuss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we're not going to do that one. We literally just had that one.
Oh, yeah.
I should probably... Okay.
Is that the same one?
No, it was... socks with sandals are a vibe, yes or no?
Absolutely a vibe. And you know what? Maybe it's because I'm in my 30s now, so maybe I'm like in that uncool dad era. But, you know, I love the freedom of a sandal with the protection of a sock from the elements.
Gotcha.
So I'm pro socks with sandals.
Well, question, does it depend on the sandal?
I think it, yeah.
Like it's okay in Crocs.
So.
I feel like Crocs and socks are like...
That makes sense.
And then maybe like a Birk as well is okay.
Yeah.
Burkett socks. Yeah, I feel like that's very trendy.
Yeah.
I see
Except
that.
what you call the sandals in Australia, they call them tongs.
The
but
thongs or
Yeah.
the flip flops.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the flip
Yeah, you
flops.
can't really do a sock with that sandal,
It's
except
also
unless you
weird
have the
look.
toe socks, and that's just like
I
can't do
actually
toe
do
socks.
wear
Oh,
toe
no.
socks.
You wear
sometimes.
toe socks?
I do. Yeah.
can't
I
do
don't
that.
have
I
them
can't
on
handle
right
the toe
now, but I do wear toe socks. They're great freedom. You
Yeah,
can
yeah.
really move your toe.
Nice.
It's kind of like not wearing. It's the freedom of not wearing shoes, but the protection of a sock.
I see the vision. I just can't get behind it.
No. So you have to put each individual
Yeah,
toe.
it's like a
into-
mitten for your toes.
Jeez.
How do you
Apparently, it's good
feel-
for your feet. Like,
Really?
yeah, because like when you wear a sock, you always have like a slight pressure
That's
of like
true.
putting your toes like this. So this helps your toes splay. It's like goes back to the way people are wearing like barefoot shoes and stuff.
I was gonna ask, how do you feel about the toe shoes?
I actually don't love a toe shoe.
No.
I know that's
Yeah, but you like toe socks.
I can hide it.
Yeah,
You know.
that's fair. I feel like they kind of died. They were getting popular for the toe shoes.
Yeah, in the gym you see them a bit still.
You would see them.
Yeah.
Or like
Yeah.
the rock climbing ones.
The
Oh,
rock
that's
stuff.
true. Similar sort of vibe.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. There we
Yeah.
go. There's another
Is
podcast.
it, so tell the people where to find you on your SoundCloud, your Instagram, anything like that.
You can find me on SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Instagram, etc. as Grrlcrrsh, GRRLCRRSH. It's the same across everything.
Nice.
And you can also
Nice.
find Queued Up
Oh, yeah.
on Instagram at QUEDUP_Toronto.
Nice.
Nice. Thank you so much for your time
We'll
today.
make sure to put all those in the description below as well.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no,
This
thank
has
you.
been
Thanks for
awesome.
Thank
coming.
you,
Really
yeah.
appreciate it. So yeah, until next time then, I guess, yeah, peace.
Stay sleepless.